Empire.
Back in the win column with a complete game victory. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. And I'll be doing the live stream again this week on Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern time. And for you Gold members, I'll be doing a private Zoom session for you guys later in the week. If you want to become a Gold member, hit that, go to the Empire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on there and go from there. And for those who don't want to become that, you get a lot of content from me regardless. So here we go. Today, the Commanders beat the Titans 42-19, and again, a complete game victory. And so I'm going to get into a lot of different things here because there are a lot of things that were important coming out of this game and what it portends for the Commanders moving forward. It was an absolutely necessary win. Going into the bye week, the last thing they needed was to go in there on a 4-game losing streak. And I think this kind of highlights maybe where they're at compared to the past, right? In the past, they'd get on a skid and they'd kind of stay on a skid. Today, they were able to bounce back after a very tough stretch. And really, in that 3-game losing streak, there was really one game where you say it was the head scratcher. And that, of course, was Dallas last week. And that's the one that got me and others concerned about, where is this team headed? And then you had a week like this. You had Bobby Wagner talking to the players earlier in the week. And a lot of guys mentioned that as something that during the week they talked about what his words meant. Now, it's not the first time a guy has gotten up there and talked about something. And typically you only hear about it when they win. However, we knew about that during the week. I talked about it in my 5 things, I think. And it just, to have guys like that who've been through a lot of things can get up there and say, like, listen, this is how you have to do it. This is how you come out of it. And I think you have the right staff with the head coach, Dan Quinn, and then the right leadership with guys like Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, Terry McLaurin, et cetera, who have been through so much, and especially Wagner and Ertz, who have been through a lot and also have won. So that's what's going on here. So it led to, that's what I said, going into this game is like, what happens if? And I know it's funny because I saw some people, they're never going to win another game. They're going to do this. You don't know. And this is a Sunday to Sunday league. And I think this team really understands that very well. And so while they were on a skid, I think they maintained a certain level of their approach, the way they worked, et cetera. It was very consistent. And that's how you get out of this stuff. Just keep working, because really, in the end, that's all you can do. And I'm going to get into the O-line in a minute about how that was important for them, or just things that the coaches had seen during the week that maybe showed up a lot today. But let's start with a couple of things, because this is about the offense, right? Tennessee's defense is really good, and Tennessee's offense is not so good. So today was about the offense getting it on track, because when they get some energy early, everything gets ready early. And it really starts with the defense getting a 3-and-out in the first series, but then the offense came alive. And they had a big, last week, told you, I felt like they lost the game in the first half. Today, they clearly won the game in the first half. And you look at, wasn't going to start with this, but let's look at the starting. I'm going to get into Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels, B-Rob, offensive line, all that. But the field position, again, where they won this game, today, they compared to last week, they had 3 drives that started like from their own 40 or into Dallas territory. They got 3 points out of it today. Their own 41, touchdown, 3 plays. Tennessee 24 after turnover, touchdown. Tennessee 34-yard line after turnover, touchdown. 21 points this week, 3 last week. Today, against a better defense, but one that has been put in multiple bad situations, Tennessee was a top 10 defense coming in a lot of categories, except for scoring, because they weren't very good weren't as good in the red zone, and they kept getting put in bad situations, and that happened again today. So Washington took advantage, could not take advantage last week. It's why they won today, and it's why they lost last week. But anyways, let's get to Terry McLaurin first, because Brian Robinson, let's go to him first, because he was terrific, and I think getting him back was tremendous for them. And just what he meant to the team today, and just getting back to a healthy Brian Robinson. And this is a really good run defense that Tennessee has. And that's why this was a really strong game for Washington. Offensive line, terrific. But Brian Robinson today, thanks to that O-line blocking, 16 carries, 103 yards. Not just the O-line blocking. You had tight end John Bates on the touchdown, the 40-yard touchdown in the first series. what I liked is that they created movement. Like Tennessee has a really stout defensive front inside with Simmons and Sweat. But you get that movement going. That's what they did. They created movement. Well, there was some of the eye candy, but also the pulling action on that play. You had Allegretti and Brandon Coleman pulling to the right. You had John Bates getting to the linebacker, creating that seam for Robinson to run through. You had Noah Brown making a block downfield. Stuff like that doesn't happen unless the receivers block. And that's what got them going. But he was strong overall. And there were a couple runs that he had where it's just like, I don't even remember, it was like maybe a 5 or 6 yard run, but it's just tough runs. And Nick Allegretti told me after the game, he said, when he's running the ball, excuse me, when for the O-line, when they're running to the ball and just getting up there and you're playing physical, you can make some mistakes because you're playing physical, and that was enough for guys like Robinson to sneak through. And Robinson said it was nice to show a little speed on that 40-yard touchdown. By the way, that's the longest touchdown run of his career. One of the I don't know, knock or whatever, one of the things we haven't seen from him is those long touchdown runs. Previous long touchdown run before today, 15 yards. Today, 40 yards. They needed that. The running backs had the running game. They had 6 runs of 10 yards or more. Last 3 games, they had like 3. So that's a big difference. And, Robinson had one point where he just lowers his shoulder into the safety. I think it was a safety, just gets more yak, but just that tough power running is something they absolutely needed. And, Tyler Biadasz talked about that, just his power running after the game and what it meant to that offense. I think that was really, really important for them to see. So Robinson, and then listen, man, Chris Rodriguez came in. Jeremy McNichols was running pretty well too. But Rodriguez, 13 carries, 94 yards, 7.2 a carry. He's done a really nice job filling in when he's needed to. And, it's funny because last year I really liked him and I felt like he ran hard, and he did not look that great this summer. In fact, like when they cut him, there was some wonder, would they even bring him back based on what he had showed in the summertime? Well, the answer was, yeah, clearly they did. And then I remember last year talking to people who said, like on the staff, they said he can be really good as long as he maintains his focus on the field. And clearly, since this year, he's been doing that, because when he's been given the opportunity, he has produced. And man, you can get 2 power guys like that and get going like that, really, and it saves Robinson a little bit. I mean, Robinson only needed to carry the ball 16 times, and it's for him this year is the injuries. Well, you get Rodriguez going, now you're also going to save Robinson as well. McNichols, 6 carries, 32 yards, perfect, right? That's what he needed to do, and I think, that's a good job by that group overall, and it's the best game they've had in a while. The running backs had only averaged like 3.3 yards per carry the last 3 games. Well, look at the difference it makes in the offense in general. And you did that against one of the top run defenses, because again, Simmons and Sweat in the middle are really tough to run against, but you get that movement up in front, and it makes a difference. But Robinson being back and healthy and running with that power, it sets a tone and a mentality, man. Like that's who they want to be. And you see it on defense with certain guys, but you see it on offense with a guy like Brian Robinson. And then you also see it with McLaurin getting involved early. And that, of course, was a big narrative this past week, is getting him involved early, because when they don't, they're a different team. And it's funny because even against I pointed this out, against the Giants a couple of weeks ago, he only had 2 catches, 19 yards, but 2 touchdowns. And he wasn't necessarily involved early, but the other guys were, and they were moving the ball and doing things. When you're not moving the ball and he's not involved early, that's a problem. So the other thing is, give him credit today, because they moved him around a little bit more. It wasn't a ton more. For example, so for the season, he is lined up on the left side, wide left, 76% of the time. Wide right, 5% of the time. So not very often. Today, it was 70% wide left, 15% wide right. The difference too is, going into today, he had 2 catches when he's lined up wide right. Today, he had 3. So they were productive, not just lining him up wide on a different side, but producing when he was on that side. So give them credit for finally getting to that. And I've told you one thing I know from talking to Terry over the course of the season, winding up just staying on one side has not been the big issue until teams figured out. He said the one game that really made a difference was Philadelphia. Like that's when you needed to move them around, and they failed to do so. But I think this is now, the more you self-scout, the more you do things, you look at the numbers, clearly you need to do something a little bit different. But so it was definitely more on the right side. They also lined up in the slot a little bit more and caught some passes out of the slot today and out of out of the left slot, it was right slot 13% of the time he was lined up there. Going into today, it was less than 9%. So, just left slot 2% today, 9% going into the game. Or around 9%. So in other words, but they were moving, it was really wide left, right, and just but moving around more. And that makes a difference. It also makes a difference when when they could get him the ball in the first play, the defense playing off him, get a nice quick 10-yard gain. That really gets things going because when he gets going, if you were here, you would have heard the crowd chanting, Terry, Terry, like obviously they love him. And he even brought it up in his post-game press conference about how much it means to him and then why he loves playing here and why he wants to be here because the way you guys, the crowd, has embraced him and you understand the importance he has to this team, right? And to this offense. And I even asked Dan Quinn, is like, how important is it? What difference does it make to get him involved early? He's like, well, that's really great reporting, John. Like, of course. Well, yeah, of course it does. But maybe is there something you feel from that energy that when he gets going early, is there a different energy that comes out of that? And I think there is because he's that. And remember talking to guys in the previous staff, and they'd say like when he is involved early, it's just different. He's involved in everything then, and it's like he doesn't press as much because not that he doesn't want to go out there. He's not going to go demand the ball from the quarterback, but he wants it. He feels he can do something with it. So you don't want a guy pressing. So get it to him early, get him involved, and get going. And they did that. Forgot one other thing with him, with McLaurin. This is the other thing. So again, the production today from the right side. Going into the game, he had 50 yards receiving when he was lined up wide right. Today, he had 31 yards receiving lined up wide right. So again, more not just lining him up a different spot, but giving him chance to produce from other spots, and that just makes a big difference. Now, in his one touchdown came when he was lined up on the right side, just a deep crosser. It wasn't necessarily going to him right away, but Jayden Daniels got a great pocket, and he was able to cross, gets him open, and there was nice action on the play. The safety, for some reason on that side, doesn't stay back there because there's a lot of stuff crossing underneath. So the eye candy in front of him takes his eyes away, and McLaurin sneaks back there. It was a long developing play. Credit the O-line for giving Daniels a lot of time and for Daniels for seeing it, stay patient, layers a nice ball to him, touchdown. On the slant touchdown to McLaurin, just a beautiful ball by Daniels and a nice catch by McLaurin, tight contested catch, but a really nice sidearm delivery from Daniels for the touchdown. So really good job by him, but getting him involved early, moving around, adjusting to what they're doing. And it creates something else for defenses now to pay attention to. They're not going to, I don't know how, I'd be curious to see what the breakdowns will be in future games, but today it was definitely more. So, and I think this is also kind of, let's put the little Cliff Kingsbury narrative about the second half offenses to the side for now. We're really talking about two tough games for this offense. One was against Dallas, one was against Philly. Philly was somewhat, I wouldn't say understandable, but more so explainable because of short week, banged up team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Very good defense. Dallas, a little bit more of a head scratcher because really good field position, all this. That was the game that started to cause some concern. Today, against a good defense, you hung up 42. And so I think we can put the other one on ice for now, and maybe if there's multiple bad games in a row, then you can resurrect it. But I'm not sure that it's going to happen because there's just when they're going like this, they're really hard to defend, and then it gets back to Jayden Daniels. So everything eventually gets back to Jayden because he's the guy that really kind of drives this engine. And his numbers today: 25 of 30, highly efficient, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 touchdown running, and 1 interception. Now on the interception, he gets onto the scramble. What I liked is he kept his eyes upfield. So he actually I don't mind the decision at all. It's just the ball was high to Zach Ertz. Yeah, he got his hands on it. Yes, you can catch that. Yes, it was high. So both of them, you could say, they both could go to the other and say, yeah, man, I messed up. And they would both be right. But I like that Daniels, he gets outside the pocket, keeps his eyes up, and then it was a problem. So, yeah, anyway. So, and it was funny because that was in the second half too, when Tennessee starts to mount a comeback and you're like, it's 28-10 at that point. And the defense, fortunately for Washington, held them to a field goal. And so they prevented, much worse energy from entering the stadium. And then the offense took back control by just taking over. But with Daniels, Dan Quinn said he was electric tonight. And, just how important getting his legs involved was, and that he could showcase everything that he had. That's Quinn essentially said that. With Daniels, he only had 34 yards rushing, but I thought it was key because by his ability to run and just pick up yards, even if it's 5, 6, 7 yards, that's a big difference. So sometimes, like there was one, he had a first down run, scramble for 7 yards at the end of the first quarter. Well, that makes a difference because now and actually was on a touchdown drive. So 2nd and 3. They haven't been in those too many of those situations, enough of those over the previous 3 games during the losing streak. But today could get his legs involved. And I like that they got him involved early in the pass game. They developed a rhythm. Again, the first pass to Terry McLaurin, just, a quick little hitch to the right, defense playing off. The second down, you get that little hitch inside to Noah Brown. And it's a play that has worked really well for them and they haven't been as successful on that lately. But in this one, you have the linebacker coming up, following B-Rob to the outside. It opens up the little inside hitch for Noah Brown. 9-yard gain, but it just gets you into a rhythm, and they had a good rhythm today. So I think that was, to me, something that had been missing, that rhythm, but it was there today for sure. And, it's funny because when Daniels gets going, as Brian Robinson said, it's beautiful. And again, Dan Quinn called him electric and said that he showed all of his stuff tonight. So the rhythm thing was a big deal. And it's, when you get that protection from the front, it's going to look really good. But it was so many good down and distance situations. And look at this. Like, I'm going to go back to those first couple of drives because I think the first down plays are what really made the difference. And I'm going to look at the scorebook here for a minute and just go over it. Like, so their first down, 10 yards, 9 yards. 4 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 12 yards, 6-yard gain, and then 8 yards, and then 7 yards. Those were all first down plays in the first quarter. When you're going like that, it's really hard to stop an offense, and it really is easy to get into a good rhythm, and they haven't been doing that. Like those first down plays the last couple weeks have not been as strong, and so today they lost yards on only 4 plays. And that's another key, and nothing until they were up big, right? And there are a couple sacks, 2 sacks, and a couple, short negative runs. But overall, like they avoided that. They put themselves in positive down and distance situations, and the result was excellent third down play. Let's take a look at what they were on third down because it was really good. 9 for 14. They have been bad on third down during the last 3 games. This is a big difference, right? And so when you can stay positive like that and you get Daniel's legs involved. And one thing I talked about this on Saturday. So again, the 5 things I think, folks, you got to listen to that because there is a lot of stuff that goes into that from throughout the week, from Phil's study, from talking to guys. But one thing you noticed on film was Tennessee leaves gaps in their rush lanes, and they did it today. And so you're not talking about 25, 30-yard runs by Daniels, but enough to get positive gains. And that's all they need to do. There wasn't last week against Dallas. Some of that was there too. Against Philly and Pittsburgh, they took that away. And now, for whatever reason, if you want to credit the ribs, I think it's as much to do with how the defenses are playing because it's what you see on film from these teams. But regardless, it was there, and he's been taking it. But he looked really very much. He and the offense looked like what we saw earlier this season. So I think we can again store that narrative about where the offense is going. Now, going into bye week, you got to come out of that bye week with a strong showing at New Orleans to keep this going. But they did a good job. They had to win this game to maintain their standing in the NFC. And yes, you can now look at the playoff race again because them winning was a big deal. Because you also had other teams losing that need to lose. As I'm recording this, Carolina is about to beat Tampa. That's a big one because I wondered about Tampa. They had the schedule down the stretch. If they go 5-1, which wasn't inconceivable with their schedule, but one of the games you thought they would win, they had Carolina twice. So if they end up losing this game, which it looks like they're going to, as I record this, that's a big deal as well. And then Arizona, losing, not so much, they had the tiebreak over Arizona, but you don't want to see a situation where you have a couple teams from that division being in position to make the playoffs. So Washington's in good shape, but they got to come out of the bye and play strong against Tennessee. Now against New Orleans. Let's talk about the O-line, though. A couple more things. O-line and a little bit on the defense. One of the things Dan Quinn said, too, was how well the offensive line looked in practice on Wednesday. And he said it was just a little bit different. And I remember, and I was talking to guys, I talked to Nick Allegretti about this, too, and just some of the details that, Tyler Biadasz talked about this, the details of the position and things that just little things here and there. But as Allegretti said, if you're doing it in a physical manner and getting there quick, even if you're a little bit off, it's still going to make a difference. So that's what was going on today. And one of the things Quinn said is in this presser was just how he felt like the line was showing a lot on Wednesday, and how they were just a little bit extra, I guess they'd say, oomph, and getting to the second level with their pad level at the right way, something just a little bit more maybe locked in. And so maybe it's just a matter of, hey, maybe they're feeling a little bit healthier after a rough few weeks. And I think no group is going to benefit more from that bye, I think, than that one. I was watching Nick Allegretti walk out of locker room. I even said to him, like, man, you look like a guy who needs a bye week. And he absolutely did. He's going to go home to Chicago, rest. But the way he's walking, just kind of that slow gait where it's like you've been through, he looked like a 65-year-old man getting out of the couch after sitting in there for several hours. Like that's how he was moving. But he's not that, but you watch what they're doing in the game. It was really good. So they need the bye, and that this is a good time for them to get it. Because now, like, think about it, man, 8-5 with the bye week now, getting ready for the final stretch. As tough as it is to have a December bye, it's a good time for this team to have one. So maybe a week late, but really a good spot. If they had lost this game, that's trouble. But going into there with a win, big time. Anyways, going back to the O-line, Cornelius Lucas started for Trent Scott, which I think was a smart move. The reason why that Scott went in last week is he's been working more at right tackle. Lucas has been working more at left tackle. Well, the week gave Lucas a chance to work more on the right side. And one of the things that Quinn said is what he really liked is watching how he and Cosme worked together in practice, the communication, and how they would stay a little bit after practice to work on some things, to get their timing down in some blocks. Lucas is a strong guy, and he's a big guy, so it's hard to run on better run blocker too than Scott. So a good move to start him, and a no-brainer move to me. Again, you watch on Brian Robinson's touchdown, the touchdown, like you have Coleman and Allegretti pulling both with a good job, and again Bates with his block as well. So a really good job by that group, and I mean, that was a good front that they were going up against. So last thing to talk about, Bobby Wagner. So, and a little bit on the defense, because the defense did a nice job. They set the tone early, gave up some stuff as the game was going, but they set the tone early with turnovers, 3 and outs, et cetera. And Wagner became the first, he and London Fletcher now, they talked after the game. It was nice to watch them talk on the radio. Like those are two, very, very excellent all-time linebackers here. So, but he and London are now the only linebackers to have 100 tackles or more in 13 straight seasons. That's incredible. They're productive later in their career, but also like what they are leaders. And that's one that goes back to what we talked about with Wagner earlier in the week and what he did. And that's what Fletcher gave them as well. Like guys who come into a situation who command a certain level of respect, not just because of the way they work, because of the way they prepare, and because of the way they can still play and what they can do on the field. Wagner's not the same player he was a few years ago, but he's also a very smart player and a very respected player. And that stuff, the smarts and all that shows up in many ways on the field and still allows him to be an effective player out there. So, that was, I think, kudos to him for being in that position, because that's really impressive. And it's symbolic of how you prepare, how you study, and again, how effective you continue to be. When you look at tackles, what you also want to do is look at where they're getting the tackles. So I remember talking to a coach a long time ago about how can you tell when a linebacker might be done? He's like, well, it's where they're getting the tackles. Well, Wagner's still getting tackles 3 yards and close to the line of scrimmage, which shows you there's effectiveness. There's sometimes on some sideline to sideline, maybe he's not getting there quite as quick. Maybe you got to take some shortcuts, but he's still a highly effective player when you're watching him, and that's why good job for him. And then the defense forced a turnover, special team forced a turnover. They got involved with that. Then a couple of things too. To Frankie Louvu had another sack. Now has 8 sacks in the season. Like he was a guy that everybody was excited about here when they signed. Of all the free agent signings they had, he was the guy they were most excited about, I would say. And while Wagner may be the most important because of leadership and what he adds, Louvu has been the most impactful. And Quinn talked about how like they kind of play off each other. They're not the same guy. They're not the same kind of player, but they play off one another. And it's with Wagner with his on-field smarts, and Louvu just go get it, man. But 8 sacks, like that's impactful. And the other thing, what it also highlights too, and this goes back into with, so on Saturday, Emmanuel Forbes was released. So, and that's another first round pick that didn't make it work here. The draft class of the previous 4 years, the draft classes, not very good. And so the draft class this year, highly productive. Why is that? So I think it's the attention to detail and the fit. I always talk about the fit, but when you talk about that, it's like you want to get guys who love process, who love to prepare, who love, it's not just being out there like, oh, as some, any coach will tell you, any scout will tell you, well, you can go watch film, and like I can watch film and tell you who's good, but you need to have guys that can go in there and talk to people like, what kind of guy is he? What kind of worker is he? And I talked about this with Logan Paulson on Saturday as well, just like how important that is and how you can look at this draft class and see like it's Daniels. The best thing about Daniels, it's not what you see on the field, it's what you hear about him in the classroom, in the getting there at 5:30, going through walkthroughs. You have coaches saying, I get here at 6:30, and that guy's coming out of the bubble after a walkthrough. Like, that's the stuff that matters. Sainristil, same kind of way. He's productive. He, forced a fumble, recovered a fumble. So, like, that's what you get. But it goes back to Luvu. Luvu fits that very well. His personality is going to help create an identity for this defense because he's a guy that's like, he brings a lot of it. He creates energy out there, and they haven't had a guy like him at that position in a while. And I think, then the combo with he and Wagner is really effective. But Luvu helps shape that defensive identity, but it goes back to the scouting and knowing the guy, right? And in the past, they bring free agents in who did not have the identity you want or the personality traits that you want, yet they would sign. Not just the last 4 years, but the previous years before that. It's just one mistake after another. And it was because they only cared about one thing and not the entire package. You got to look at the entire package, because if you don't care about working and processing, getting better, it's not going to matter how good you are. You're going to hit a ceiling and you're just going to plateau, and then boom, you're going to be out. Like, these guys have shipped out a bunch of draft picks. Now, I think Jamin Davis actually works at it, right? I think he worked at it very well. He just wasn't good enough. I don't think he had the instincts for the position that you needed. Forbes, you had to wonder about the other side. And I think, you see the skill. And so, as Dan Quinn said after the game today, maybe a change of scenery can help him. And that's what he told Forbes when they released him, that a change of scenery could you can look at Noah Igbinoghene, former first-round pick from Miami, now creating a role for himself as a nickel back here. So he's is he impactful? Not necessarily, but he's been a solid nickel corner for Washington this year. Can Forbes do that? Well, we'll see. But I know from the past, like, guys would say, like, it's got to be more about how badly do you want it? That's the big question that anybody's going to have to answer. But I think it's the one thing that this previous staff, I don't think they did enough of that kind of work, or at least didn't emphasize it enough. And that's why you see all, this year, Davis, Dotson, Forbes, now all out. Montez Sweat did not fit in that category. Chase Young, he's also out. So the last, 5 first-round picks from 2019 on, that's a brutal loss. Like, and as someone else pointed out, I can't remember where it was, either on Twitter or something, like pointed out to me, it's like kind of amazing they're 8-5 now, given all those failed first-round picks and what they've been able to do. It just shows you the value of coaching, quarterback, and then good free agent findings and signings and draft picks. So they're in a good spot, folks. And the last thing is, too, speaking of draft picks, Phidarian Mathis, second-round pick from a couple years ago, inactive, a healthy scratch. Carl Davis ahead of him. Why is that? Well, Quinn said it was as simple as Davis has been doing well in practice, and they're about competition. So if just because you have the job doesn't mean you keep the job. It's you still have to compete to get it. Davis competed. He's beaten out Mathis. What that says, you can take it any way, man. But what I like is they're going to focus on that. The competition part for Quinn is a massive thing. And I think it's also, people above him, Peters, Harris, they're all like that. But for Quinn, that really matters. So I like that they're going to go by that. And that's a big reason why Davis is there. He played 14 snaps, saw a couple of times where he's gotten some good pushback. And that's why he was out there. And I thought Mathis had been playing better. I hadn't watched him closely enough the last couple of weeks, so I don't, because for time purposes, but he had started to make some movements there, right? He had started to play, had a couple good games, and then just kind of plateaued. And last week, I didn't feel like when I was able to watch him, didn't really feel the presence, right? So when you're not going to do that, if you're not going to prepare, you're not going to practice better than someone else, I like that they're going to put someone else in there. So Davis offers the same kind of size, went in there. And so I'll be curious to see how it looks when I go back and watch him over the next couple of days. So anyway, folks, that's it. A good win for the Commanders. 42-19 convincing win. Yeah, Tennessee was 3-8 coming in, but they've been playing better. So this is, and Washington, as you know, had not been playing well. So for them to have a win like this gives them so much confidence going into the bye week to come out with more energy. You got a good final 4-game push. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun here over the next month. So December, meaningful football. Oh, but how about this stat? This was the first home December win since 2017. Week 16 of 2017. That to me is unbelievable. It's the first December win since 2021, the one they had out in Las Vegas. Unbelievable, folks. And that's kind of shows where this franchise has been. But I think you're going to see, it's going to be fun to have, like, it's been a while since we've seen a good team play in December. And yes, you can still say at 8-5, this is a good team. Is it elite? No, but they are a good team and you should enjoy it. So anyway, folks, that's it for me. Like I said, I'll be back Tuesday morning, going to have a game review. And then also Tuesday night live stream 7:30. And I'll have another one the rest of the week. I have a special guest coming on for later in the week. And, we'll go from there, folks. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking around. I'll talk to you next time.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.